would be acceptable if any other country became as militarily powerful as the United States. How about no militarily power? I mean, yeah, fine, whatever. Wait, what? Quiz submissions. Oh, you bricked it, chat. Did you brick it? Oh, so annoying. Annoying. An exercise in futility. Political topology quiz. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I said I was going to do this, and it's time to do it. I am going to do the political topology quiz. Earlier today, we looked at a Kamala Harris supporter being shocked that they were right-wing on this topology quiz. Now we dive in to find out which one of our 9 political topology groups is best your match compared to the nationally representative survey of more than 10,000 U.S. adults by Pew Research Center. You may find some of these questions difficult to answer. That's okay. In those cases, pick the answer that comes closest to your view, even if it isn't exactly right. If you had to choose, would you rather have a smaller government providing fewer services, a bigger government providing more services? When you say you favor a bigger government providing more services, do you think it would be better to modestly expand on current government services, greatly expand on current government services? Which of the following statements come closest to your view? America's openness to people from all over the world is essential to who we are as a nation. If America is too open to people from all over the world, we risk losing our identity as a nation. In general, would you say experts who study a subject for many years are usually better at making good policy decisions about that subject than other people? Usually worse at making good policy decisions about that subject than other people? Neither better nor worse at making good policy decisions about that subject. Okay, this is the first time where it's like, it's not usually better, but I mean, it's probably the closest. Experts are oftentimes very dumb, but, you know, it depends. Thinking about the increased trade of goods and services between the U.S. and other nations in recent decades, would you say that the U.S. has gained more than it has lost because increased trade has helped lower prices and increase competitiveness of some U.S. businesses? Lost more than it has gained because increased trade has cost jobs in manufacturing and other industries and lowered wages for some U.S. workers? Lost more than it has gained. How much more, if anything, needs to be done to ensure equal rights for all Americans, regardless of their racial or ethnic backgrounds? A lot. Duh. Which comes closer to your view about what needs to be done to ensure equal rights for all Americans, regardless of their racial or ethnic backgrounds, even if neither is exactly right? Most U.S. laws and major institutions need to be completely rebuilt because they're fundamentally biased against some racial or ethnic groups. While there are many inequities in the U.S. and laws and institutions, necessary changes can be made by working within the... Okay. Question number 6. Which of the following statements comes closest to your worldview? Business corporations make too much profit. Most corporations make a fair and reasonable... No, business corporations should make no profit. That's the closest to my worldview. How much, if at all, would it bother you to regularly hear people speak a language other than English in public spaces? That's insane. On a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 means you feel cold and negative as possible, 100 means you feel as warm and positive as possible, how do you feel towards Democrats? I'm going to go with 10. How do you feel towards Republicans? 0. Which of these statements best describes your opinion about the United States? The U.S. stands above all other countries in the world. The U.S. is one of the greatest countries in the world, along with some others. There are other countries that are better than the U.S. Where is my option? Which is, the United States is a blight on progress for the working class all around the world, both historically and still currently. It is so bad that it's actually a blight on the domestic working class as well. The United States consistently works against the interests of bettering society, both here and also overseas. Okay, a continuation of the other stain on global history, which would be the British Empire. Okay, we are literally the number one at everything bad. Okay, we are not the number one in anything good, with like maybe some cherry pick data, like, I don't know, brain cancer research or something. But like beyond that, we are literally evil. Okay, we're evil as... I like that that's not an option, though. There are other countries that are better than the U.S. How much of a problem, if any, would you say each of the following are in the country today? People being too easily offended by others, say. People being too easily offended, minor problem. People saying things that are offensive to others, major problem, for sure. That is a big problem, in my opinion, because I assume they're talking about hate speech. Which comes closer to review the candidates for political office, even if neither is exactly right? I usually feel like there's at least one candidate who shares most of my views. None of the candidates represent my views well. In general, how much do white people benefit from the advantages in society that black people do not have? A great deal. Do you think greater social acceptance of people who are transgender, people who identify as a gender as different from the sex they were assigned at birth is very good for society? Overall, would you say people who are convicted of in this country serve too much time in prison, too little time in prison, about the right time? No. Who would say anything but too much time in prison? Which of the following statements comes closest to your view? Religion should be kept separate from the government policies. Government policies should support religious values and beliefs. In the future, do you think U.S. policy should try to keep it so that America is the only military superpower? Ew. It would be acceptable if any other country became as militarily powerful as the United States. How about no militarily power? I mean, yeah, fine, whatever. Wait, what? Quiz submissions? Oh, you bricked it, chat. Did you brick it? Oh, so annoying. Annoying. An exercise in futility. It's not even necessarily your fault. It's probably the fault of the website for not assuming that they're going to get this much traffic. So what do I do? Do I just sit here and wait? Do I just refresh it? Sure. Also, it's about the political topology quiz. All right, before we get to the news, let's get started. Okay, let's get started with the serious portion of the broadcast now that we've been around for like an hour. Yeah, I'll do the Neom influencer stuff, which is going to be great. But I got the progressive left. Your best fit is progressive left along with 6% of the public. Progressive left, the only majority white, non-Hispanic, Democratic-oriented political topology group, have very liberal views on virtually every issue and support far-reaching changes that address racial injustice and expand the social safety net. They're among the smallest topology groups, but also one of the most politically engaged. They feel less warmly towards the Democratic Party than establishment liberals or Democratic mainstays, but those who voted in 2020 general election were nearly unanimous in their support for Joe Biden. They are the only group in which a majority say they like political leaders who identify as democratic socialists. Progressive left are 6% of public, 7% of registered voters, 8% of 2020 voters. They are highly politically engaged, deeply concerned about racial justice, support strong action to address climate change. You can read more about the Progressive Left Center's topology report. You can also view interactive charts to see how the 9 topology groups compare on a number of different issues. Obviously, we have the faith and flag conservatives, like the hogs of the hogs, you know, the yee ass hogs. You have the committed conservatives. You have the populist right. I don't know what the populist right would technically be. I feel like the populist right would be just like Nazis as well. Ambivalent right is just Kamala voters. Yeah, faith and flag is just blood and soil, I guess. I don't even understand how you could answer any of those questions in a way where you could get like faith and flag as an outcome. Like you have to be it's one of those things where like a lot of these polls, when you look at them, a lot of these questionnaires, when you look at them, I always wonder like, how can you even reach like the most far right? Surprised you didn't get outsider left. Yeah, I don't know what their outsider left topology. I mean, I don't know what the outsider left is. It's the youngest topology group. They hold liberal views on most issues, particularly on issues of racial equality and immigration, and overwhelmingly vote Democratic. They're more skeptical of government performance than other Democratic-oriented groups, though far less so than those in the GOP-oriented groups. I don't know why I got slotted into progressive left instead of like outsider left. They describe their own political views as liberal. I guess like it's because it says like democratic socialism is like technically progressive left. It's because you're old. Yeah, distinguishing feature is young, dissatisfied with parties, liberal on most issues. Depends on how you like the Democrats. Guys, I put 10. I put 0 for the Republican and I put 10 on the Democrats from a scale of 1 to 100, 0 to 100. I was outsider left because I gave Dems and Republicans 10. You gave Dems and Republicans the same percentage of faith. Outsider left and progressive left hinged on the trade question. How you compare? Share of outsider left saying the same as you. Share of general population saying the same as you. Religion should be kept separate from government policies. You would rather have a bigger government and greatly expand on current government services. Progressive left, 63%. Religion should be kept separate, 94%. Race and immigration, America's openness to people from all over the world. White people benefit at least a fair amount of advantages in society black people do not have. You rated Democrats 10. Progressive left on average rated Democrats 69. The general public average rated Democrats 46. You rated Republicans 0. Progressive left on average. Wait, how the fuck am I progressive left then? I said the Democrats are a 10 and the progressive left say it's a 69. I usually feel like none of the candidates represent my views well. Anyway, they took your IP for this? Yeah, I don't care. Maybe it's because of the trade question. The U.S. has lost more than it's gained from increased trade. In terms of like, I think the trade question is like weird because like there's obviously benefits to global trade Okay. But also, there are negative consequences in terms of like businesses switching out manufacturing hubs from domestic manufacturing to like, the global south. So I don't really get it. Why does bro look like he's going to go to dinner with Brandon? I'm going to dinner with your mom. Progressive versus outsider dependent on whether you said at least one candidate represents you. I don't think I said any candidate represents me. Anyway, whatever. So that was the political topology quiz. Silly overall from Pew Center Research. Obviously, none of these questionnaires like are all encompassing. None of these questionnaires have any like they never will have the full scope, the full breadth of the depth of like leftist politics. It's always like slotted weirdly into like some other liberal adjacent topology. Anyway, Mark Robinson, we're going to talk about. We'll do it. Have you ever done a left values test? Yeah. Mark Robinson is running for governor. Did not ask if you're a pro-NATO leftist. I know. Did not ask if I was going to write in Brandon, which is crazy. We'll get to Mark Robinson in a moment. I love Mark Robinson. I've talked briefly about Mark Robinson in my... I've talked about Mark Robinson, ironically enough, on my on the paywalled portion of the Fear End podcast when I was talking to Austin. There's a lot of stuff. It's a target rich environment. Mark Robinson is a weirdo and a total freak. I've talked about it on the stream as well, obviously, and he's definitely going to lose the North Carolina gubernatorial race that he's running on right now and have issues. He might even cause problems for Donald Trump because he's so like nuclear grade enriched uranium toxic. Okay. It's really bad. Haven't really used Reddit for like a year. Thought your criticisms were a little harsh. Went there the other day and made a comment on Our World News denouncing terrorism after the pager attacks and was banned for it. Mods followed up and confirmed they support terrorism. Weird place. Yeah. No, Reddit is the Hasbara factory. Okay. Reddit is the Hasbara factory. Okay. You are going to get, especially on like a lot of those big liberal adjacent like subreddits that cover the news and politics, like they are so perma-fried. Like most of these subreddits, like unless they are directly about like, I don't know, Palestinian emancipation, or unless they are, I guess, about, socialism or whatever, like you're mostly going to see Hasbara bots everywhere. It's really freakish. Speaking of Hasbara and whatever, I listened to the New York Times Daily last night because I'm an incredibly boring person. Okay. And I do want to mention that. I do want to mention how boring of a person I am. But I was listening to the New York Times Daily on Israel Palestine, and it was genuinely shocking. Okay. First of all, they got the most Israeli man of all time, the most Israeli journalist you could find. And I think that was deliberate. They literally were like, you cannot call this man. Okay. And he did say a bunch of stuff correctly about the ways in which the settlers have greatly escalated tensions. Okay. And I'm not even kidding when I tell you, like, I'm pretty sure they had to show him now. I don't know what he looks like. I'm just saying he sounded like the most Israeli man of all time. And as a fellow daily listener to Political Autism, it was actually shockingly good. Okay? It was actually shockingly good. I will say that. Now, there were, of course, issues that I had. Very little focus on the negotiations process, hyping up, Yitzhak Rabin as like the actual savior, and maybe not bouldering the Israeli government as hard. It was like the most like liberal Zionist critique you can get on Israel, basically, and the most humanitarian argument coming directly out of Israel that you will ever hear. And it was still good. I think it's good because like the New York Times audience does not ever get that perspective. They do not ever hear that perspective. So I think that it's probably good to have them hear that perspective. The episode is called Israel's Existential Threat from Within. Okay. And they had Ronan Bergman covering the conflict. Ronan Bergman is a staff writer for the New York Times Magazine. And I'll tell you this much. I'll tell you this much. Like, the dude straight up, he mentioned things that even I didn't know, which was shocking because, I mean, I feel like I, pay a lot of attention and have done a lot of reading on this subject matter. There were some things that he talked about with respect to like the internal investigations conducted by the Israeli Defense Force when the first like pogroms started happening in the West Bank directly. And I did not even know that like the IDF conducted internal investigations and then did nothing with the internal investigations. And then the main guy that conducted the internal investigation actually quit. Like, I didn't know that. This daily is based on the expose that I tried to link you about the extremism within the article that the New York Times did. Yeah. Bro, Ronan Bergman was the guy you called a Zionist yesterday. Wait, no, is that him? No, he sounded very different on the daily. Oh my God, it is him. It is him. It's the guy that was talking about the pager bombs yesterday. Oh my God, I had no idea. Okay, well, he sounded very different on the New York Times daily. He sounded way more Israeli on the daily than he did when we were listening to him yesterday. Anyway, regardless, Haas doesn't always get it right, it seems. No, I mean, I didn't. Joe Rogan level? Wait, he is Israeli. Nothing I said is wrong. What the fuck are you guys talking about? What are you guys? I never said my position on the commentary has not changed at all. What the fuck are you talking about? I was talking about his accent, dude. Calm down. You be wrong sometimes, it's okay? I'm not wrong. It's just the same guy who gives it. What are you talking about? I know he's an Israeli journalist. I didn't know it was the same Israeli journalist. Anyway, regardless, like his assessment on the daily, the way he presented the story on the daily in terms of the ultra-nationalist radicalization. Can you admit when you're wrong, asking generally, Lamont? Of course, I do. I always do. There's a difference, however, when I'm not wrong and Chad is just waiting for me to be wrong so they can just like pounce and bait me because they're being annoying. Hasan, they're baiting you about being wrong. It's a hater identified by now. Never mind it. I know. Anyway, man, so you're saying all Israelis look alike? L take. Okay, we're done. So anyway, as I was saying, is an argument that you called him a Zionist yesterday, apparently? Yeah, I'm still calling him a Zionist. I said he is a liberal Zionist. I think the issue here is that people don't understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. I'm saying that the daily, in terms of like the New York Times coverage on Israel, actually did a pretty solid job. I'm not expecting them to do like plus 972 magazine style coverage. Okay. I'm not expecting them to even do Haaretz style coverage. I'm simply shocked because the New York Times, oftentimes outflanks even Israeli publications that are but sometimes they outflank Israeli publications that are themselves Zionist publications. So judging by that metric, it is actually shocking how this journalist was placing the blame on all things Israel-Palestine, specifically on the settlers and the rise of the ultra-nationalist right. Some of the notes that I had on it, however, in terms of criticism, was when he called the Baruch Goldstein an activist. He said he was a far-right activist instead of calling him a terrorist, okay? By outflank, you mean like analysis that's correct? No, outflank as in like even more hardline right-wing in their commentary. Yes. Baruch Goldstein, he doesn't even like the guy. I'm just simply saying like I think you choose those words very carefully. When you talk about a guy like Baruch Goldstein and you call him a far-right activist after openly admitting like what he did, he called him a master. He said all of it, but like there was a couple instances where I was like, okay, like he's, you should just call him a terrorist. The Israeli government did, or Itamar Ben-Gvir, or Bezalel Smotrich. He openly talked about Bezalel Smotrich's alleged attempted assassination involvement. He talked about Itamar Ben-Gvir's open calls for assassinating Yitzhak Rabin. So like he did a lot of that. And I think it's good for people who watch the New York Times and listen to the New York Times daily, who read the New York Times, to hear that side, because they never get that. Okay, that's it. The New York Times consistently washes the Israeli, while local Israeli liberal leftist newspapers are far more closely, accurately use the language. Yes. Or even J-Post, which is not liberal nor leftist at all. Like even J-Post or Ynet will sometimes cover what is going on truthfully in a way that the New York Times never does. Times of Israel, another newspaper that is not exactly a leftist or liberal newspaper, but they will openly talk about what's happening because that's their job. Their job is to cover the news, right? The New York Times, that's what I mean when I say the New York Times will sometimes outflank